if we could address you directly right now.
Everything comes full circle.
That's number one.
I don't tell him what questions to ask me.
There are a lot of people around town that have the same question.
Brush my teeth. I'm a good wash in the morning.
I can't confirm or deny.
You know, just keep going a little bit longer here, Mike. You keep going a little bit longer.
Fran Brown this, Fran Brown that.
If you want me to take a lie detector, Brian, I'll take it.
Portal watch this, Portal watch that.
The dog Mama Duke. People say I like that dog.
What are you talking about playing walk-on? Who do you think walked onto the team?
Anybody that thinks this is going to come back is either naive or plain stupid.
All across CNY.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
It's the 315.
Hardy faking, feeds the Grace Jameson. Got it!
He scores! Woo! Here's Brian Higgins.
Oh, the day after, that all happened last night, huh? Welcome in. Syracuse was up by 16, I'm told. Then the rest of the game occurred. What's up, hero? In the Q's, Utica, Rome. Has the snow stopped yet? I think it stopped. Everybody dug out all right? Found some salt to get the ice off. And can you see your mailbox currently? The post office has an issue with deliveries if you can't. Check on that. Dig it out. Get your mail. What's up on a Wednesday? We got one guest for you today. In studio, Alan Griffin, 4:30. See what's on Griff's mind today. Always entertaining, though I can't imagine Griff will be in the sunshiniest of moods after the end of last night's game. Phone lines will be open besides that throughout. 315-437-7644. Your thoughts on the ball game last night, or where things are at, or if you want to talk about not the basketball team, that is also an option at your disposal here today. Little football news to get you later in the program as well, just coming down the pike. Some recruiting-related news in regards to how Fran Brown and crew go about that process. So we'll get to that in due time today as well. But there we are, day after Syracuse went into the deja vu machine last night against Pittsburgh. 22-6 at one point. Then the rest of the game happened. Yeah, the rest of the game did not go as well for the Orange, and that was one that I don't know at what point it hit you. I feel it probably hit everybody slightly differently. Early-ish second half, it just began to feel inevitable what the end result was going to be last night. So that's what we got heading into the show today. But again, your thoughts welcome throughout at 315-437-7644. Griff coming up in roundabouts half an hour. Little football coming up later. We'll get into definitely a lot more lacrosse coming up later this week. Expect to have Luke Roa on the show tomorrow to talk some lax. JJ Starling, RomanoCars.com. Scheduled to be on the show tomorrow, and we'll see where we get to rest of the week. No basketball game this weekend. Probably a well-needed reprieve for the squad at this point. We'll, step back, take a breath, a little lax in our lives over the weekend as Lax takes on Harvard on Saturday in the Dome. That could be a good little game. Harvard's not bad, and we'll see where it goes from there. But as mentioned, phone lines open, 315-437-7644. With that all laid out for you, let's kick it off today.
We start with the Burdick BMW opening drive.
And as mentioned, want to hear your thoughts, so let's kick it off with your thoughts. Why not? My thoughts will keep. My thoughts will keep. So let's go to the phone lines, and we will go out west. We'll start with our guy Joe in Portland here today. What's up, Joe?
Hey, how's it going, Brian?
Good. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I actually don't usually call in much anymore. I haven't actually been following much of basketball the past couple of months. I just recently caught up on some games, but initially I kind of was super emotional about it. I was just kind of getting upset, and I've been a fan for probably about 2 decades now. I remember watching SU basketball since I was 4 years old, back when they had, I think it was Johnny Flynn before, he became a star he was and stuff. But anyway, just to kind of get to the point of it, I'm really upset with how Autry is running offense. There's two things that I've noticed has become a common theme across all the games this year, win or loss. It just seems to be a recurring problem, which I think points to a bigger issue. I won't go too deep into it. I'll just try to keep it simple. The biggest thing I'm noticing that's leading to a lot of their bad possessions is bad spacing on offense. So what I mean by that is not in the sense of spacing as in you have to have 5 shooters in the court at all times. I know NBA's offenses run that sometimes. I'm talking about just general foundational spacing when it comes to basketball. The idea of, when I'm sure you've heard the term fill the slot,
yep.
Right? How you have a player that goes to a slot, they stay there, or they move from the slot, and then another player comes and fills that slot, right? So what I'm noticing in these games happening is two things. One is you have 2 or sometimes even more players, 2 to 3 players filling the same slot at the same time. So, for example, you'll see Eddie Lampkin and Jair Davis, both on the block, which makes no sense. At the very least, Jair Davis should be roaming the mid-range portion, and then Eddie Lampkin should be posted on the block. Just stay there. That's his role, right? You have players I'm trying to think. I've seen Lucas Taylor and Chris Bell and Carlos, all 3 of those players, all on one side of the court. And then there will be it's frustrating I say this, there are so many times I'm watching, and not just this past game, but in Miami, UNC, many games even this year, where you have 3 players on the perimeter that are all filling one side of the court, and the other side of the court is completely wide open. And my thought process is, are they running a play to leave the other side of the court open? Are they just overloading the side? And then the possession ends with a brick. And I'm like, no, they weren't running a play. They just didn't know how to space the court. And I say this from the perspective as a basketball player. I've been playing basketball for most of my life. Mm-hmm. Granted, not professionally. I haven't played division college basketball or anything like that, so I know there's a grain of salt there. But I have watched so much basketball. I would consider myself a freaking junkie in terms of playing it just in my spare time and consuming it, both NBA and college. And when I'm just speaking from my personal experience, if I'm the one playing, my goal as a basketball player, even if I'm not making shots, is to find an open space of the court and fill it. If another player is in that slot, I go somewhere else. To me, that should be an instinctual thing for a basketball player to do. And the reason why it's a problem to me, why I point to Autry for this, some people can be like, oh, they're not making shots, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But I'm talking about a foundational thing here with basketball. These are fundamental concepts that I'm just consistently not seeing with this team. And watching that, from my perspective as I watch these games, is so frustrating, because these are things that, as a basketball player, I wouldn't do, or any basketball player, in my opinion, shouldn't do. Now, that's one thing. The second thing, which is another big issue with this team on offense, defense is a whole other thing, right? That's a separate issue. I think that there's other things that go into that, but I won't get into that. Just offensively speaking, there's one other thing that's really important I'm noticing is, again, a common theme all season, is not making the right pass, right? So I think this past game against Pittsburgh was a great example. I watched the condensed game on ACC Network on YouTube just to kind of point out this. And as I was watching it, I noted at least 5 or 6 times where you had Chris Bell wide open in the corner. There's actually, I think it was a possession specifically comes to mind where Jair Davis, I think it was maybe 5 minutes left in the second half or so. Pittsburgh was going on the run, right? And Eddie Lampkin, I think, and Jair Davis were both on the block. Again, they're filling the same slot, right? So it's already a problem. But there was a wide open Chris Bell in the corner. He was calling for it. He didn't get the ball, even though the pass was easy to make. I could have made that pass. I'm not even a professional Division I player, but I could have made that pass. That's how open he was, right? So he was open on the far, I think it was the right corner.
Yeah, was that the play where Lampkin kind of had a short hook that rammed into the front of the rim, if I'm thinking right? There's a play that sounds similar to what I'm thinking of.
I think it was, Jair Davis, he got blocked at the rim by, I think it was that skinny center they have on Pittsburgh, that powerful, I forgot his name, Guillermo Diaz or something like that.
Yep.
So that was the first thing, is Bell's open on the right corner, wide open. right? Easy pass to make. He even had both of his hands up, right? At that point, if I'm Chris Bell in that situation, I'm saying corner. I'm making it so clear. It's just at the very least to shift the defense over to him, right? And then you also had Carlos open the top of the key, right? And I think someone was pointing to him, even on the other side of Syracuse. I forgot who it was who was pointing to him, saying, "Hey, you could pay." It was frustrating because Jair Davis could have made either of those passes, and they both would have been good passes. You know what he decided to do? And this is no knock against Davis specifically, because there's all the other players that have made this mistake in this team. Is he passed it back to Eddie Lampkin, who was in the same slot as Davis was, and then he got double teamed. He passed it back to Davis. Davis got immediately blocked. Right, and then Pittsburgh went down the court, and I think they had like a 3 in that possession, right? So, and again, I'm just pointing out that one example just to prove my point that this is a it's a fundamental issue with this team over this entire season, right? The difference between teams that I'll just say this, between tournament teams, not just top 10 teams, the difference between a tournament team, NCAA tournament team, and a team like Syracuse that will not make the tournament this year unless they just magically get hot and whatever in the ACC tournament are these two things. Really, that's what it comes down to. In my opinion, it's just foundational things. Spacing, like proper spacing, right? And then making the right pass, right? Now, I guess before I finish up here, I know this is kind of going long-winded here, but ultimately the reason why I get upset at Autry for this is because these are things you shouldn't just be teaching as a coach. These are foundational things you should be hammering in to your players too, right? They should know this instinctually, right? These are two things that you need to know. This isn't just like a mid-season thing, like, oh, maybe we should just change the defense, maybe we should, get this player going. No. This goes beyond just like those simple. I'm talking about like these are foundational things as a coach at any level, Division 1, 2, 3, NBA, doesn't matter. If I'm a coach in this situation, these are things that I'm hammering home, right? In the film room, these are things that are so easy to point out to me, right? So the fact that, again, I don't know, maybe Autry notices it, maybe someone on the coaching staff notices it. I don't know because it's not being communicated. But regardless of if it's problematic because if someone does notice it, that's a problem because it's not being fixed,
yeah,
or it's not being addressed properly. Or two, if it isn't being noticed, that's also a problem because it's not being noticed. That's a coach's job; is to notice that. So to me, that's why again I'm just really upset at the coaching staff for those two reasons, or at least with Autry specifically, because again, if he's noticing it, he's not properly addressing it, in my opinion. And if he isn't noticing it, that's a bigger problem. It just shows that he's just not seeing it for what it is.
I'd say, Joe, I'm certain they're noted. Like, I'm certain they're aware of the basketball issue of it. And this is where I go back to. You said, and I agree with you, and your general assessment of it, of what doesn't look right out there, that it should be an instinctual thing out onto the court. And it should be. And that's where I wonder, okay, it should be an instinctual thing on the court. So it's not. So some of that's got to be at the players also. If it should be basketball instinct to go to the open space,
sure.
Why are the players not? So I think that's where I find, like, is some of it coaching? I'm sure some of it is coaching, but to put all of it on red, I find like, well, like, why are these guys specifically not doing it? Like, I look at last year, same coach. The offense, I mean, they were scoring a ton of points. The defense was still a mess, but like things seemed to be more instinctual last year. Why is that? Was that coaching? Was that better players? And I think that's where this year, as it goes on, has been so baffling that we watched the guy coach last year, and while it wasn't the best season of all time, it wasn't this. And that's where I wonder, okay, is it just this crop and you got it wrong and you got the wrong mix on the court? And that's the fix? Is there something inherently wrong in the coaching as well? I don't know. I think that's where the breakdown of understanding this year that makes it so impossible to figure out, because there are some things that look like they would be, well, why didn't you just go over there? And is it red? Is it the player? And I think that's where we get stuck in the middle right now.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to belabor the point, and this isn't coming from a place of like personal disrespect to the coaching staff. I mean, I like Red as a person, right? I like, Alan Griffin and the coaching staff in general, right? I get that. But, again, I look back to Boeheim, right? I just asked myself when I came up with these questions, I'm like, if Boeheim had this team, right, how would he run it, right? And I know that's a hypothetical kind of thing, right? But to me, and maybe this is kind of like rose-colored glasses. I get it. Boeheim's been the coach forever. But it's just I don't think these are mistakes that would be made, at the very least, as frequent as they're being made now if Boeheim was coaching and seeing. I mean, obviously, I can't say for sure what Boeheim is thinking or what he would do. But, I mean, I've followed the team for over 2 decades, right? I've known patterns and trends. And I just know Boeheim, like, he is a coach that he's always focused on these very fundamental things, right? There's a reason why he's coached on the Olympic team, for God's sakes, right? There's a reason why he's coached some of the best players in the world, right, that play for some of the best teams in the world, right? Because he's someone who understands it's not just the fact that these are foundational things, it's how important these things are, right? These are the things we need to stress the most. More than just, this goes beyond more than just like, oh, you have to, take good shots, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, those are a given. But all those things on offense only come from first hammering home how important those two things are. Making the right pass and players being in the right spots whenever possible. I get that no team's going to be perfect, but the difference between the top teams and teams like Syracuse are teams that make it happen more often than not, right? And actually, you brought up a good point. I think last year, I hate to say this, right, but I think last year's success, to me, was more a result of the instinct by the players rather than the coach actually instilling these principles onto said players, right? Again, it's just my opinion. I know everyone has one, but again, and to me, I say that because if it was the coach that was instilling these principles and hammering these things home last season, then theoretically this season would likely be better. At least one would think with the roster that they have, right? Now, another thing, too, is, why Autry decided to recruit, players that don't shoot threes well, even though he emphasizes spacing, to me seems contradictory, with Davis and Lampkin. I think they're both individually great players in their own respects. But you have to understand from a roster perspective, these are changes that you have to be cognizant of, right? I was watching Pittsburgh last night, for example, with how they were spacing the floor. Every possession that they scored, even the possessions that they didn't score, they were still spacing the floor well, right? And to me, it's not a big deal if you miss shots, as long as those shots are good shots and the floor is properly spaced when you take them. Right? Well, the whole point of basketball is giving yourself the best chance.
I think you look at their team, though. I mean, the shots from their guards have a lot better chance of going in. We got to run here, Joe, sure. But thanks for the call. I mean, I think good perspective there, but again, I think here's the problem. We can't last year say it was all on the players that they won, and then this year say it's all on red that they're losing. Yeah, last year's team was better. Last year's team was more talented. It's unfair to go 100% in one bucket and then 0% in the other bucket. It's a mix somewhere in the middle. This year's team is not as good as last year's team. There is no combination of players on the roster, and we've talked about this a ton. On this year's team that you can put on the court, that is going to make a whole lot of sense because it just leaves some serious flaws, and you have nobody on this year's team that's as good as Judah was last year. And what does that lead to? Last night, and the game before, and yeah, we all know the drill. We all know the drill by now. All right, good call, though, by Joe. I mean, he's not wrong about the offense. The observations are correct. The why? Who knows? And I think that's what we've all been yelling about recently. And the main problem is nobody really gives a crap about the why, right? Because you all just want to see wins. You just want to see wins. The why is kind of secondary to all of it. All right, with that, we'll put a cap on our Burdick BMW opening drive for the day. And with that, let's check out how the markets did here on this Wednesday. We're bringing Mike from Lee Baldwin. All right, Mike, how'd this midweek Wednesday go for you?
Not bad, Brian. I know we're a couple weeks past Groundhog Day, but it was basically a repeat of yesterday. The averages squeaked out small gains for the last 10 minutes of the day, so we closed positive across the board. Not too much action today. We're going to go with an interesting diamond, though. Hims and Hers, symbol HIMS. we're going to call that a healthcare platform. That's what they refer to it on my computer. I think we all know what they do.
Let's go with that.
That was up 17% to an all-time high, and there appears to be a disconnect because our dog is dating app Bumble, BMBL, closed at an all-time low today, down about 30%. So go figure. There's no connection between those two companies, I guess. But that's it for today. Overall, pretty flat day, but we were positive.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Mike. I guess if one product's working, you don't need the second one as much anymore. You can stick with your initial returns on that. With that, we will take a break. Phone lines remain open here going forward. 315-437-7644. Griff will be in studio around about 10 minutes from now. Get his thoughts on last night. He was all riled. He was texting me the other day. He was riled up about something. He would not divulge what. We'll find out about that as well coming up in 10 minutes or so. We'll step aside for a few. Much more to come here on this Wednesday. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Syracuse.
What's up, chat? What is up? They make things work properly, Ryan. Yeah, I don't know if anyone met Griff for coffee. We'll have to inquire when he gets here. I'd say I don't disagree with Joe's basketball analysis of what's going on. Like their spacing and movement has been wonky all year. My assumption is that Red is telling them to do something different. Is it just being done poorly? Is it being ignored? What's the amount of times, having sat near courtside for men's hoops for many, many years and listening to Jim Boeheim, the amount of times I've heard just Boeheim yell to the floor, pass and cut, which is essentially what Joe was saying. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm sure Red does too, save for it all being on him. I mean, that's the real question now. The question is not that the basketball is bad. We all understand that. The question is why and what fixes it. And I think it's both, but I would say the main why this year is you need better players. Yeah, hopefully Steve's doing all right. I haven't had a recent update on Steve. Steve in the chat? Yeah, no, I think this is as significant an offseason in the history of Syracuse basketball. Snowing again, Kev? Oof. My poor mailbox is just like peeking out.
Your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com. All across central New York, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, back at it here on this Wednesday, unpacking last night's loss to Pittsburgh, 16 up to 11 down by the end of things last night. Phone lines available, 315-437-7644. Our weekly visit with Orange assistant coach Alan Griffin. He should be in studio coming up in 5-10 minutes or so. With that, let's quickly get back to the phones. And our guy George in Memphis is hanging on. What's going on, George?
Hey, Brian, a couple things. First of all, at the micro level, in a 15-loss season, I don't know that you can say it was a devastating loss, but it was a devastating loss last night. This is the best chance to really beat a decent team this year. Had a really good game plan in the first half. Shots were going down. Really concerned about the second half, what I saw, and game planning and adjustment. That's the first thing. And second thing is there's been 4 enormous wins this year for Syracuse, and they are Colgate, Youngstown State, Lemoyne, and Boston College. And I'm telling you right now, if he did not get those wins, this narrative would be significantly different for next year. So that needs to be understood, and that is amazing to have to say something like that and that be a truism. Now, as it pertains to Red and what you're seeing and moving in the future, I mean, I think there's 3 prongs here. First one is talent, and I agree. Last time I called in, somebody called in behind and said, "I don't have talent." Maybe they're right. Talent's not there. Next year, there's talent coming in, but here's the thing that you got to come to grips with. With this talent, the coaching becomes, I think, slightly less important. But if you're still not good at it or great at it, you're going to have games that will be winnable, and you're not going to win them.
Right.
The second thing is where you have no talent, you can still improve, and you can get better through a year. And I'm not sure that this team has done much of that. So that's number one on the talent angle. Totally agree that'll play itself out next year. Second thing, and with Red credit, is coaching, can you drive effort? And I believe the effort has been there. I absolutely believe the effort has been there. So then it leads you to the game plan prep aspect of it, and I think every SU fan's got to be concerned there. And I don't know if it's the start of this game against Stanford or the last night's second half against Pittsburgh. There has to be serious concerns about the day before, the 2 days before these games, what is being discussed and emphasized, and at halftime, what is being discussed and emphasized. Talent or no talent, that is really befuddling to me. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say, George, the main question is, I have full faith, and well, that's Griff. He'll be in here next segment. I have full faith that they're scouting it and informing the guys of what they want to be done. The question is, is it a breakdown of that? Is it a breakdown of execution? And what, if we're assigning blame, what percentage of blame goes where? I think a lot of people this year have been quick to shoot all the blame at Red, where – yeah, you're the head coach. I mean, clearly that's the buck stops here, right? But clearly some of the breakdowns cannot be the coaching, because some of the stuff that goes wrong, there's no way they coached it like that. It just doesn't make a lick of sense. So no. I think that's where next year, you hate to kick the can, but next year, now you got a third data point of a third season, and you can compare what's hopefully going to be a better season. You can look at what we saw last year. You can look at what we saw this year. And then I think you kind of know then, because now you've got 3 different sets of players of where Red is at improving, not improving as a head coach. I think next year, you see it, and if that stuff hasn't gotten better or hasn't cleared up with better players, then I think you know.
And I think I like the way you said that. It's 3 different sets of players, all probably with pretty disparate talent activity. Last year's team probably be the middle of the 3. Next year's team, I think, will be the most talented. And then maybe we're back into that category 1 I talked about. You've got talent, and now coaching is a little bit less important, but you're not going to win in this league unless you're doing those preparation things and making them in-game adjustments. So let's finish it out with a couple wins. If we don't, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think, like you said, we got to hit the portal and fill the roster.
All right, George. Thanks as always for the call. We got George down in Memphis. We've gone West Coast and South here today. All right, let's get a break in. Griff is in studio. Alan Griffin next year. Phone calls rest of the way after Griff here on a Wednesday. It's Q Sports Talk at ESPN Radio.
The Sport.
Yeah, but not every good teacher has straight A students, right, LARH? Yeah, that's going to be grim, Telemachus. That's going to be grim. Said if you're the department, you're hoping you balance that out with football, right? What's up, Griff? I'm excited to hear. You do whatever you need to do, Griff. I didn't tell you that.
No. I got to keep a job, right?
Hey. Oh man, yeah. Little Brooklyn needs diapers, right?
Oh, for sure. What is it? Infamil? The Infamil?
Oh yeah.
The formula that costs $100 a deal.
I don't even want to know what that costs now. I haven't.
How old are your kids?
3 and 5.
Oh, okay.
So it's two yet, but I'm sure it's skyrocketed in just the last couple of years.
Can't wait for her to eat regular food. You know?
Yeah, it was like in during COVID. It was like the tail end of Max was like 9 months. It was like the tail end of it.
Right.
Then it was like, oh Jesus, where is it? Like, come on, what store has it? Yeah, it's
my man, like, why is, like, my whole thing is, like, why would Brent Axe put something out there like that? Like, why would he do that? Like, I don't understand, like, why.
Clicks?
But my whole thing is, like, clicks for what, though? Like, clicks is like, these kids are still fighting for their lives and still playing to the end. And you know what? Maybe the results are not being what he may like or what his clickbait or whatever the people that clicks on him like. But, like, it's not about them. It's about the kids. And if they're going to continue to keep playing, then we're going to continue to keep coaching. Like,
no.
Like, I cannot, for the life of me, I cannot understand why he did what he did. What he just did that article. I don't. It's like, my thing is, it's like a conspiracy theory. Like, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I just think that he's trying to set up the next clickbait for him is to talk about the attendance for the NC State game. That's what he's doing. I think he's trying to get as many people not to go to the game so that it's another click thing in terms of attendance, and then it's another thing.
I do like a good conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's the only thing that I can like knowing what NC State did last year. Like you have a outside chance of doing something like that, and you claim to be a professional. You claim to be what you are in this business. Like I don't get it.
It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Rolling along here on a Wednesday. We always enjoy our weekly visits with our guy, Alan Griffin. If you're with us on Q Sports Talk, he's right there. If you're not, he's still right there, but we'll talk with Griff. You guys were cooking there for about 10 minutes last night. What happened? What happened after that? What's the read of start versus finish last night?
I'll be honest, this is a make-miss college basketball season, definitely for us. And when we don't make shots, we have no shot. Yeah. Like, to be honest, like we did some really good stuff. When you go back and you watch the film and you look at the execution on offense and you look at what we tried to do, what we game plan for, we drew it up to a T. It's just, especially in the second half, we missed. We went 3 straight possessions. We got 3 wide open shots, and we missed all 3 of them. And it wasn't like a guy that was off the bench, or it was one of our key players. JJ missed a couple. Mm-hmm. I think Chris missed one that was wide open. And Chris played a great game. But it comes down to those possessions. Like, we're not a team that's going to beat anybody by 20 points. So every possession matters, and all possession matters. And you know what? And when you can go 3 straight minutes with not score, that's a killer for us.
I mean, you must know that. Like, you're up 16. You guys know your team, right? You're like, okay, we're probably not running away and winning by 30. So, like, what are you thinking at that point? Like, hey guys, we gotta still push it here.
Yeah, we got to keep scoring and we got to keep getting stops. Obviously, that's very cliche, but like, and you know what? They did a good job of speeding us up a little bit in the first half when they made the adjustment. They went to their 1-2-2. And we got a couple, wide open shots again, but it was just sped up. It wasn't like in our rhythm that we had in terms of running our offense and stuff like that. And I think that was a major key for us, going into the half, only up, single digits.
Yeah, and it was 16. It was, I think, 7 at halftime. Then obviously, they played great in the second half. Did it feel like, I don't want to say inevitable. What's the feeling there? Because you've been in so many of these games recently, right? Where it's just, okay. Right. Like, does that feeling set in during the game, or are you able to push that out while you're still out there playing?
No, that feeling never set in until after the game. Yeah. And then you look back and you're like, damn, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just too many of those moments. And, for the average fan and the fan that's listening, like, yes, we know we're losing. Right, yeah. We're I
think some people don't think you're aware of that.
I don't think so. Like, obviously, just with the reaction around town is like, oh my God, like, they just think that we go about our lives and we're just living in this fairy tale land. And no, it's a nightmare. Like, for you guys, just as much as it is for us too, right? And we have families that we got to go back to, and they got to take the blunt of how we feel and what we're feeling and so forth. So, again, yeah, we're mad too. Yeah. We're upset. We're angry. Every emotion that you feel about this team, we feel it. But you know what? We're in it day to day. We're spending the hours that we spend in order to keeping these young men trying to, fulfill their dreams. And you know what? We're just coming up short. I'm sorry. Like, you know what? If anybody of you guys out there that want, I'm sorry. I just don't know what else to say to you guys. Unless you want to come to a practice and see how we prepare. Come to, our office and spend the 10 hours there and seeing the preparation that we put in every day. But again, like, I'm sorry.
Anyone meet you for coffee last week?
No. Everybody's scared. They hide behind their computers.
Griff's still available. He'll get a coffee with you on Friday.
I will meet anybody, anywhere, within drivable distance to sit down and talk about anything that they have and that they want to get off their chest. But a lot of people just want to hide behind computers and be scared.
All right, so take me into the locker room after the game last night. Like, is it anger, upset? Like, what are people's reactions after that where you're like, man, we could have won this one?
Upset. because you know what? It's not even, it's when, these guys recognize when they have even a bad practice. They'll come up to you and say, hey, coach, man, I didn't have my best day tomorrow. But like when you're trying to win basketball games, you got to be consistent, right? And I just think that, in some aspects of what we got going on is the inconsistencies, and part of it is that we're playing against some really good teams too, you can't be inconsistent playing against good teams because again they're gonna beat you.
Yeah, I've heard the other teams try to win the games also.
Oh, for sure. No. They just lay down and just. We beat ourselves.
We look at this team. It's not a perfect roster, Griff. We know that, and it leads to you trying to find workarounds, right? Like,
right.
How tough is that to balance during a game where you know that, all right, if we put this group out here, we might be deficient here. If we put this group out, we'll be like, how do you balance that during a game?
Yeah, it's too many of it.
Yeah.
For us, right? Looking for matchups for certain guys. And as a coach, when you have to shuffle around and try to make, we can't put these two guys on the court because then we get, they're not very good offensive players, but, better defensive player. But then defensively, our two better offensive players. It's just too much of that for us. And again, the word that comes up is consistency, throughout offensively and defensively. And we just got to kind of, next year and moving forward is try to be as consistent as possible on both ends of the court.
Red always loops back to defense. It feels like I think it was after the Carolina game on Saturday. He said something to the effect of like our problem is not putting the ball in the basket. Like,
right.
It's looping back to defense. What do you see when you look at we've seen man, we've seen zone. What is it on defense that has been such a struggle, I guess, for 40 minutes?
I think when you look at playing defense, there's a want in defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at the basketball society, everything is based off of offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is, and they try to make you score more points. So like kids growing up nowadays is, it's about I want to be the best 3-point shooter I can be. I want to have the best handles. I want to be able to go to my midi, but it's never I want to be the best defender, and that's not a knock on our team. That's just right now in basketball. For me personally, I knew when I played here for Coach Boeheim, I knew that if I didn't play defense, I wouldn't play.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a I went into it and hey, listen, I need to be able to play defense, right? And then during my time, you had defense meant a lot more. I think right now it for everything it's about offense, but and you got to have a want to play in defense and sometimes and that's for an entirety of a game, not just possessions, right? You got to do it for 40 minutes, and sometimes that's not our thought process.
Yeah, I think yesterday, you look at the beginning of the game, we saw a very aggressive defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Physical steals, and maybe that's not there at the end. Was that your view from the bench?
Yeah, definitely. And you got to do it for 40 minutes. We talk about doing, being consistent for 40 minutes, and offensively and defensively, and obviously we talk about defense. You got to do it for an entire 40 minutes. Now teams are going to score. Right, you're not going to hold a team to 0. I don't think there's not a team in the country that's held a team to 0. Right,
you don't often get a shutout.
So it's just one of those things where it has to mean more to us, and you know what, and sometimes it's also just closing a defensive possession with a rebound. Right, I don't know how many times the Diaz kid went in there, tipped the ball out, and made something happen where they were able to punish us. Not securing the rebound on a defensive rebound. So it's stuff like that keeps beating us, and we haven't figured that out yet. And that's not to throw anybody under the bus. I just think us as a team.
There's so much talk about, and Red keeps getting asked about this too, about effort. Is that, in your mind, Griff, is it effort or is that different? Is it attention to detail, being locked in? Is that different, I guess, than,
definitely,
effort?
I think if it wasn't effort, if it was an effort thing, I don't think we come out the way we came out yesterday, get up 16. I just think that is a attention to detail thing and a concentration level, for 40 minutes. And I just think that that's just what it is. especially for this team. And I've been a part of teams, and my coaching career that's been here, and it's just one of those things where, and until you as a player make the concentrated effort to say, you know what, I'm not going to give up an offensive rebound today. Like, that's all I'm going to do. And I don't care about scoring. I don't care about whatever. I'm just not going to do that because that's hurting our team. And until you make that up and until you put that in your mind, it don't matter what you do, what you draw up, what players coach draw up. It's going to come back because some of those stuff is, the habits, right, of the individual.
And I think we saw last night, and this is not an effort thing. I mean, you look at Eddie, and he's been playing very well, but he inherently he's not a rim protector like that. That's not what he is. Pittsburgh obviously had multiple guys that were able to accomplish that successfully yesterday. How much does that? We look historically at Syracuse, especially in the zone. You had a million of those guys. How different is that in a man this year for the most part, where your primary middle guy is not, and Jair's only 6'7" or whatever. You're not blocking shots. That's not what this team is.
Yeah, it's been our Achilles heel for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
The last shot blocker that we had was Jesse Edwards, who helped our defense tremendously, especially inside. But he struggled a little bit too. If you don't have rim protection, it's hard. You better have some damn good guys that keep guys in front of you, right? Yeah. In front of them, excuse me. And it's just one of those things where, I think moving forward is one of those things that, us as a staff, we have to address, right? And that's just point blank. Last year we had Malik, and was able to play, guys on the perimeter, get steals, took people out of ball screen coverages, throughout the season. But then once the second half of the season, especially towards the end, teams just changed and they started to post us because Malik was only 6'7", 6'8", right? And now it changed the dynamic of our defense, which plummeted our defense at the end of the year because teams started to get to the free throw line and so forth, so forth. So it's one of those things that we have to address, as a program, and hopefully moving forward we can get somebody that can alter some shots, block some shots, and make some stuff happen around the rim.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously what we've talked about in the past when it comes to the portal and Alex Klein and everything that he's doing. I think a lot of people were intrigued about your freshman for next year, too. Like Sadiq White, I know he's known for his defense. I don't know if you'd call him a rim protector. If he's that size, is that a role you can even play as a freshman?
Yeah, he'll be added plus to rim protection.
Like a more secondary.
Yeah, secondary rim, coming over, blocking shots. And please don't quote me on this because I'm done with all digging up stuff that I said 2 years ago, 1 year ago, whatever.
Old takes exposed.
Old takes, yeah. He athletically, he's a like Jeremy Grant type.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's very good for those that don't know.
Long, wiry,
bouncy,
but I am not calling him Jeremy Grant, okay? I just want everybody to know that.
Alan Griffin is called Sadiq White Jeremy Grant.
No, I did not.
Write that down.
No, I did not. Okay. I'm just saying, Brian, please don't do that because, I also want to address something too, like really quick, and just because, something that I said, and I did say, get your popcorn ready, right?
You did.
I did say that, and I'm a man, and I'll come up and say that. And you know what? Who wouldn't be excited about their team?
Mm-hmm. It was a great quote last year.
It's a great quote. Like, and I was excited about this year's team. Sorry, again, sorry it didn't happen, but God, people killing me because I said get your popcorn ready. Well, what I was supposed to say, we're gonna be an average team. We're gonna stink, and that's it. Then you guys will kill me on that too. Enough. It's just one of those things where I was excited about this year's team, and I thought that we had a really good team, and we do have a good team. It's just, unfortunately, it's just not panning out the way I thought at the time. But you know what? The one thing I would say, and I will continue to say, we got good kids that's still fighting, that's competing. And you know what? I'll go down with this team regardless of what, and whoever say anything, I don't care.
We just need a little more butter and seasoning on the popcorn.
Well, a little salt, a
little shake. I mean, people hate to hear injuries and excuses, but man, Chapa's now out. How's he doing? What's
he's
his deal?
Good? Good spirit. Obviously travels with us to Pittsburgh, and really good teammate. Cares about his guys, and wanted to be out there, and obviously, unfortunately, couldn't play in the game, but hopefully we can get him back here soon. A week off would help. It's not one of those deals where I think it's a lot of time that's going to be off. So, yeah.
Speaking of the idea when you were talking last year about popcorn and adding it to the injuries, how much this year have you guys gotten to do what you thought you were going to be able to do? Like with, JJ's out, then Donnie's out, and Chance, barely played at all this year and all that stuff. Have you ever really put what you thought it was going to be on the court?
We had it for we thought we were, trending that way. We had 5 games when, we were able to play with Donnie, with JJ, and our whole team. And we were working Chance back as well. So it was those practices in those 5 games, which it wasn't the greatest sample size, but it was, we thought we can be able to do some really good stuff offensively, and we thought, as the year went on, we can get to a point where we could play 2 different lineups, where, especially defensively, where you can switch a lot, and with Donnie playing the 5 and stuff like that. So it was a lot of things that we envisioned, but obviously due to injury and unfortunate situations, we couldn't do it. So we had to pivot, and you know what? Again, pivoting, our guys continue to work as hard as they can, and they gave us their absolute best in terms of effort. Definitely, 100%.
The chat always asks me about Chance. How's he doing? We see him there, but
good.
He's been gone for a while.
Yeah, good. And unfortunately, I can't, because of the HIPAA stuff. I can't speak on Chance, but we just we wish for the best for him, and hopefully he can get himself back to being able to compete at this level.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because he's a good kid and he tries hard.
We keep hearing great things about all these practices, and we've just never gotten to see it. We've never gotten to see it. So hopefully, sometime somewhere we get to see Chance Westry play basketball like that. All right, Griff, you mentioned it. No game this weekend. You play next Wednesday. NC State, right? That's a massive game. You don't like to think about it, right? But the possibility of missing the ACC tournament is there if you guys don't finish out here. How much does that weigh on you? I mean, clearly you guys want to go to that, right? You want to be there.
Yeah, definitely. Contrary to those who don't believe we shouldn't go there or shouldn't be there, again, it was something that was said and was brought to my attention about we should just, fold. We're no quitters. We're not folding, regardless of what anybody believes. They're not there every day with our team and with our guys, and we're not going to fold. We don't have quitters. We got a really good NC State team coming in here that's well coached. Coach Keats is one of the best coaches, and he's going to have his team prepared to try to win because they want to play in Charlotte too. So it's going to be a big game for us, and every game is a big game for us. We try to take one game at a time, but we're no quitters. We don't fold to nobody unless they tell us it's our last possible game.
What do you think that's going to be like for the 3 teams that don't make it? I mean, that's never been a thing before. That's got to be brutal, right, if you're one of those 3 that doesn't get to go.
Yeah, definitely. And in my college career, I've been there. I've been there. I've been one of those guys that have been done that early, and it sucks. It really, really sucks. And that's why you bring that energy. That's why you still coach to the very last moment, is because you don't want to be part of that. But if it does, then obviously we get a head start on moving forward and trying to get this next class situated and get the best possible kids that we could possibly get.
All right, last thing, Griff, how do you handle this weekend here? Are you giving the guys a little time here? Are you recruiting? What do you do here during this rare weekend without a game?
Yeah, somewhat recruiting. I know our head coach will be out doing some stuff, and we'll be, and some of us will be around the guys and doing some individual stuff. But we'll give them a couple of days as well, so that they can kind of get themselves together and.
Little mental breaks never bad.
For sure. I mean, Bill Self said it the best. He said, you know what? This is a great time for our program. They need to get a break from us, and we need a break from them, and it's needed. I don't care if your team is number 1 team in the country. This is the dog days right now. February, March is the dog days, and this is the crunch time. So it's much needed.
Yeah, it's the shortest month on the calendar, Griff. It's might be the longest month of the basketball season, right?
Oh, for sure, especially for us.
All right, so next week, next Wednesday's a game day, so I guess you won't be in studio next week, but we'll talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. I'll you know what? Hopefully I can be here, but I won't be here. You know, I'll be getting ready for the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can stop by on the way if you want. But,
yeah, maybe it is on the way. I passed through here coming from my home.
We'll figure that out next week.
All right, definitely.
All right, man. Griff, always good to see you. Yeah. It's our guy, Al Griffin. With that, we'll take a break. Phone lines open the rest of the way here on this Wednesday, 315-437-7644 here in this hour, brought to you by William Mattar. Back after this here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Hey, this is former Syracuse basketball player Aton Thomas.
Last season, the Syracuse center became the first Orangeman to be named the Big East Defensive Player of the Year.
And I'm former Syracuse basketball player Eric Devendorf.
Join us every Monday at 11:30 as we break down the Syracuse basketball season.
It's our new show, Aton and Devo, on ESPN Radio Syracuse.
And don't forget to watch us on QSportsTalk.com.
That's live on Twitch and YouTube.
Shep Family Funeral Homes is one of the oldest family-owned businesses in Central New York. We're committed to offering you the highest quality of service at the best value. We can work with you at your pace, within your budget, whether you're choosing cremation or burial, for a service at any one of our modern locations. Special events take planning. A funeral should be no different. Start the talk with us today. Shep Family Funeral Homes. Traditionally fine service and facilities within the means of all.
At Syracuse Orthopedic Specialists, we're everywhere you need us to be. On the sidelines at high schools and colleges, and in our offices throughout CNY. We're always nearby, open every day, working as a team to make your comeback stronger than ever. Prevent, recover, strengthen, perform. From youth to pros, SOS Sports Medicine helps you do more.
Ask a pro golfer, and they'll tell you the best way to improve your game isn't a shiny new driver. It's working on the fundamentals with a great coach. The same goes for wealth management. You can get swept up in the slick sales pitch from a commissioned broker, or make fundamentally sound decisions with a financial advisor at Rockbridge. Rockbridge's fee-only structure means no commissions, no kickbacks, and no hype. Get a second opinion on your investments from the local fee-only experts at Rockbridge. Visit rockbridgeinvest.com.
Hi, I'm Dan Shirk, General Manager for the Oneida Motor Group in Oneida and Rome. All you Orange fans, I'm here with LaQuint Allen Jr., running back for the Syracuse Orange. It's been a great time watching you break through to become a superstar with the Orange, LaQuint. 14 touchdowns this year. That is incredible.
Thank you, Dan. The Orange will forever be my home. And I just want to say thank you to Central New York and to the Nye Automotive Group for all you have done for me and my team this year. I mean, without your help, it would have been much harder to get to practice. I can assure you that.
Many SU athletes are in Nye vehicles. It's a partnership that goes back for quite some time and will continue for many years to come. When these vehicles are returned, they're brand new vehicles, gently used with maybe 3,000 miles or so on them. And they always go for deep discounts. So I want Central New York to know that when you want huge savings, just ask for a player's ride. We may just have the perfect one for you.
That sounds like a deal Orange fans have been waiting for. And thank you to Central New York for giving me a home these past few years. Orange fans are one of a kind. So come see why it's gotta be Nye at NyeAuto.com. And don't forget to ask for the Orange deal.
It's time for your best guess. Sponsored by Pawn Pro.
Yeah, you get the commercials while I talk to Griff. You get the commercials. Gotta let Griff let it fly a little bit. Yeah, bring in a lip reader. Griff is saying he loves you all very much and that he can't wait to talk to you all next week. Oh, man. Hey, look, it's Mike. I found Mike. Griffin, do you feel good? Oh. Was it with, like, are you injured now? Do we need to sue Griff?
No. I'll never wash a shoulder again.
Oh, well.
Want to get it out of the way real quick? Oh, you only have 30 seconds.
Yeah, that like the games generally only take that long, but that seems aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want it to happen.
Like, we got to have a little build-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ravens are good, man. Like, officially, like, good.
The Ravens are good at football?
Yeah.
It's a bold take.
And the Steelers just, like, not used to this. Like, in recent history, when like Steelers haven't been the best, usually the Ravens are also not the best. Like they happen to like coincide with one another.
Do you want to feel better about your team?
Yeah.
Compare them to the Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw a graphic yesterday. The Giants are the 4th lowest winning percentage in all American sports.
Since when?
Last 10 years.
Is that a problem?
Cross CNY. It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, rolling along here on a Wednesday. Always appreciate Griff stopping by and, put it out there. Letting us know how he feels from the heart. Not a lot of coach speak there. So we appreciate that in a season that, guess what? The coaches aren't having a lot of fun either. We're all in this together in the realm of not having a lot of fun. 4 more games in the regular season. And we'll tell you about the ACC tournament here in a little bit. How next Wednesday, you talk about an important game, like a game that nobody in the national realm of college basketball is going to care about in this NC State game. Yeah. It is majorly important as far as making or not making the ACC tournament. Not a fun conversation, but it's going to be the one we're having next week. All right, let's get another call in here before the end of the hour. Even though the hour is already over, we'll head back south. We're going to go to Al in Kentucky. What's going on, Al?
Hey, how are you today?
Very good. What's up?
A couple of things when I watch the games and, people critical of red or whatever, but even at this stage, there's some questionable decisions that are made during the game that I don't know if get better next year with different players. For example, to me, in the first half, we were rolling them. We're up 14, 16. And then at some point, for some reason, maybe to rest him, he took JJ out of the game. Now, we're not a great team. We're off to a great start. You have to think there's a chance we could revert to form later on, which is what happened. But you're up 16. Why not step on their neck? Keep them in the game. Drive them into the ground. Get up by 20, 25, where you can't lose a game like that. But instead, we took them out of the game. Then later on in the first half, when they started to press, I'm not a Carlos fan. I don't think he's an ACC quality point guard, but he can handle the ball. And he was on the bench. And it went 3 or 4 possessions when they pressed, and we looked really bad before he was brought back in. And then after the half that Chris Bell had, why doesn't he start in the second half? It's to do the same kind of mentally lazy thing, to keep starting the same people. I don't get it, especially when they started off the second half with the press, and the guys in the front court were unguarded. Chris Bell could have had 4 or 5 open looks, okay? Instead, he didn't come in until 5 minutes were gone. And so these are things that, it's one thing to say, well, maybe your players aren't talented, that they don't play hard, but I also don't think we're being put in the best position to win these games. And to me, those were regrettable decisions as I watched the game.
Yeah, Hal, I'd say of things Red has been criticized for this year, the one I'm most willing to hop on is the substitution patterns. And last night, those are 3, I'd say, very specific examples that I'd agree with you on all of them for the most part. I get the idea of starting the same lineup in the second half, but you could have brought Bell in a lot earlier. I mean, you could have brought him in a minute into the second half or something like that. Like Jim Boeheim almost always started the same lineup to start the second half, but he would very often, make a very quick substitution at the start of the second half. And he was also, I think part of it is like you, like me, we've watched a ton of Syracuse basketball over the years, a.k.a. we've watched a lot of Boeheim. He was very much a ride the hot hand a guy in those situations. So, yeah, I'd say those are 2 things that Red certainly has not mastered yet, and that would be the hope that he gets better at stuff like that going forward.
One other thing, in my observation with Chris Bell, and I don't have all the statistics and all the metrics, but he got off to a bad start, and they put him on the bench. And everyone, the wisdom is, well, now he's better. He doesn't feel as much pressure. I think the problem was Carlos not being really the point guard we would need. He wasn't part of the offense properly. We weren't going through Lampkin, so he wasn't getting the good looks he would get. And his shooting has improved, not because he's on the bench, because after 8 or 10 games, J.J. became the primary ball handler. J.J. draws attention. J.J. has guys rotate. We started featuring Lampkin more, and then Bell's going to get better looks. And I believe, he's probably 40, 45%, not because he's on the bench, but because the offensive flow has changed and the pattern, which is why I don't see start him again. Start him now that you changed the offense, now that you're going through Bell, now that J.J. is established as a scorer that demands attention. Put his offense back in the game and see how we do. We're not winning with what we're doing, but yet it continues. And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Al, I'd say I was going to get into potential lineups later on here. And I was wondering last night, especially with Elijah out hurt, what they were going to do with the starting lineup. Obviously, Jaquan is what they opted with. I think there's a world that makes a decent amount of sense where you could start J.J., Lucas Taylor, Chris Bell, Jair Davis, and Eddie Lampkin and roll with that. That group hasn't necessarily played together a ton. You don't necessarily have a lot of ball handling out there, but I think you have your most potent firepower on the court at once to start a game. And I agree with you, Al. Like, why not toss that out? Because I think your point is correct that Bell's issue was not necessarily starting. I mean, he started for 3 years. It was that he rose to the top of the depth chart when Lampkin's back was bothering him, and then J.J. got hurt, and he is not well positioned to be the number one guy. And he's reasonably easy to take away if he's your main goal of what you're taking away. If he's back down to number 3 on the list now behind J.J. and Lampkin, I think that fits more to his ability, which is hitting that corner 3, and I think that can work out for you.
The other thing is that, what you were saying about the starting lineup, I like that lineup because I think I noticed we were playing zone last night, or maybe it was the Carolina game, with Cuff and Carlos out front. We have never been a good zone team with small guards, especially now in the age of the three-point shooter. Joe Girard, good athlete, but he couldn't guard a 3. Carlos is horrible at defending the 3, and it's partly because of their size. You can't extend out, on the shooters. You're 5'9", you're 6 with short arms, as opposed to Lucas Taylor or even Bell out front with those long arms, protecting the 3. He's not a great defender, but he's quick enough. He's probably the only NBA athlete on the team. I haven't seen Westry play, but again, some of the lineups that we have they don't make sense with the type of team that we're playing, the personnel on the floor. I just don't think you can play. We saw with the first 10 games, Carlos cannot play out front in that zone. Maybe if JJ's in foul trouble, and you certainly can't have Carlos and Cuff out there. You got to have some size out there.
Yeah, those two together, especially in zone, just a little bit too small. All right, Al, thanks as always for the call. Al down in Kentucky. I think a lot of good points being raised there by our callers today on this stuff. That said, even the other answers, even the option that I'm thinking of is all right, move Taylor to the 2, put Bell back in the starting lineup. There's still going to be, any of these groups, unfortunately for Syracuse, are going to have defensive deficiencies. And I think we've seen almost all of what Red has done this year, right, wrong, or otherwise, with when he makes a substitution, it's almost generally because something has gone wrong on defense that he's trying to fix, it feels like. And just the roster this year does not have a lot of defensive fixes hanging out. Okay, Naheem McLeod, okay. That's why we're seeing a lot more of my Storovich, but okay, there's certainly significant limits to both of those options. All right, let's hit a break. We got to get to the second hour. Oh, dear, we're already well past the top of the second hour. But phone lines remain open, 315-437-7644. Your thoughts on hoops? Got a football nugget to get in there before too long as well. So we're back after this on a Wednesday. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
The sport.
Your autocorrect goes to Lumpkin? Rick Jackson, great point, Satchel Sack. Let's go back now. This is besides the title team, my favorite Syracuse basketball team, the 2010 team with Wes Johnson. They played 7 guys. But because all 7 guys were legitimately versatile, it was the deepest 7-person lineup I've ever seen. But they needed all 7. They played 7 guys. Arinze gets hurt, and it gets totally screwed up. But, A.O. would go, like they'd start Rick and A.O., but A.O. would take a breather. Now Rick's the center. Or now you take Rick out and Chris Joe's in. Now you got that lineup. Like, you could do anything you wanted with those 7 guys. This year, it doesn't even matter how many guys, and you can't do half as many things. But, like, those teams were very, very talented. Like, that 2010 team was the most interchangeable 7-person lineup I could think of. Like, sometimes you think, we need 10 guys to be interchangeable. That team had 7. And they could change. They had 7 guys, and somehow everybody had a backup. He was a lefty. Well, let's say he still is a lefty. But they'd start big. You started big. They always try to pound it inside early with Rick and A.O. Then you'd take Rick out and you'd bring Chris Joe in. Then you'd bring Scoop off the bench. I remain certain, and I will remain certain until the end of time, that if Arinze did not get hurt, they would have won the national championship. Like, that Duke team that won the title that year was nothing special. That team was so good. Like, 2012 was probably even a more talented team than 2010 with Waiters and Fab and all that. I'm not as certain in 2012 because, like, that Kentucky team was really good. I think Syracuse makes the Final Four with Fab. Like, I think a Kentucky-Cuse game that year would have been a freaking game. That would have been a game. But, like, based on the rest of the country in 2010 and the way that team was playing, that team wins the title. Oh, that Ohio State game. For real, Ryan? That's wild. I love that 2010 team. The second he got hurt and you heard him screaming, like, well, there goes that season. Did I look what up? LeVar Ball had his foot amputated after suffering a serious medical issue. I would say that would be serious if they have to cut your foot off. Maybe. That is one thing that would... Yeah. Maybe he got caught in a wheat thresher. He was on a farm. One of those big things that harvest wheat. Like those giant combines that like harvest wheat.
Oh, where they have like the tube.
Yeah. Like that would screw up your foot. I don't know why he'd be near a wheat thresher.
Oh, no, they must have got him out quick and it only affected his foot.
Yeah, they're like, oh, turn that off.
From a standpoint of status.
Can't go backwards. Can't go forward. What am I gonna do?
Hey, what happened? Lisa, if you don't like your job, you don't strike. You just go in every day and do it really half-assed. That's the American way.
I hope it's happy hour.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
This is a great day. A really great day.
All across CNY. It's the 315 with Brian Higgins. Halfway home, we drive into the second hour with Burdick BMW.
We're tardy to the party for the second hour. It's already 5:15. But what can you do? Having fun to the first hour today. As much fun as we can have right now talking Syracuse Hoops is, yeah, like, what can you say? And then we say a lot about it, but it's not been great, not fun last night. It was fun. Like, we were having a lot of fun for 10 minutes. Then the next 10 minutes, we were still having a little bit of fun. Then the second half started, and the fun dwindled. And then the second half continued, and the fun died. There was no more fun by the end of the game. The fun was gone. Phone line's open if you'd like to discuss. 315-437-7644. Got a little football want to hit going on. A staff change to be made with football after one we mentioned earlier this week. Ross Douglas, the wide receivers coach, is out to Oregon. Something else has gone down earlier today that we'll fill you in on in due time here on the show. Do want to get a few more hoops thoughts in. Talk kind of with Al last segment about one of the things that had on the docket today, which was potential lineups you can do. And, all right, you're running out here. I don't know if we saw last night. If we did, it wasn't for a lot. And we haven't seen this lineup, I don't think, for a lot this season. One that would be J.J. Taylor Bell, who's now shooting mid-40% in ACC play. Davis, Majstorovic, pick a power forward, and Lampkin. I would be intrigued of turning to that. You know, talent, this, that, whatever. Bell's one of your top whatever guys. I think it's time. You know, we know his defense is, yeah, but whose isn't at this point? I think it may be time to toss him back in the starting lineup and just see if he's on one of those days from the get-go going forward. And going forward, there's only 4 games left in the regular season, which leads to this. The missing the ACC tournament thing, which is, God forbid, right? Because there's 3 teams. This is the first time. Like it used to, for every year up until this year, everybody made the tournament, and now they don't. Same format of the tournament, 3 more teams. So 3 teams will miss the ACC tournament this year. We kind of mentioned it in passing long ago, not thinking it would matter at all. Then it started to look like it might matter. Then Syracuse won a couple games. We're like, all right, I think they might be good. Well, right now Syracuse is 5-11 in the league. Cal's 5-10. Notre Dame's 5-9. So 3 5-win teams. The 3 teams behind them, NC State 3-11 in the league, Boston College is 3-12, Miami is 2-12. NC State remaining games: at Carolina tonight, Wake Forest, at Syracuse next Wednesday, at Georgia Tech, Pitt, at Miami. Boston College remaining games: Georgia Tech, West Coast swing, Stanford and Cal, Clemson at home, at Pittsburgh. Miami remaining games: at FSU, Virginia Tech, Duke, at Carolina, at Georgia Tech, NC State. I don't really see a logical way. Could anything happen? Sure. I don't really see a logical way any of those teams are getting to 6. Winning 3 more games the way they're playing right now just doesn't seem like a thing that's going to happen. Which means if Syracuse wins 1 more game, very likely we can stop having this conversation. Especially if that 1 more game is a week from today against NC State in the Dome. Realistically, looking at BC, I don't know if they got 2 more wins in their back pocket, and even if they do, they wouldn't have a tiebreak with Syracuse. They need 3 more. I'm kind of counting them out. Miami would have a head-to-head with Syracuse, but they need 3 more wins to get there. Doesn't seem the most likely outcome. So, realistically, the Syracuse-NC State game next Wednesday suddenly has gone from like ho-hum to shockingly vital if we're going to stop or continue having this conversation going forward. If Syracuse loses that game, now you're still stuck on 5 wins. NC State's up to 4 with a head-to-head tiebreaker. Then you're on the road at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's not great this season. The Orange have been terrible away from the Dome. Then you're on the road at SMU. SMU's solid, and you're on the road. It's very possible you could be dragging this thing out if you lose this NC State game to quite literally 8 o'clock Saturday night, last day of the regular season, Virginia in the Dome, and oh my goodness. Because NC State would only have to win 1 other game potentially if Syracuse loses out. Not potentially. And they have Miami left. Like, they have winnable games, especially at Miami to end the season. If Syracuse doesn't win this NC State game next Wednesday, the collar gets really, really tight on like a thing that you didn't remotely think that it would be necessary to think about going forward. Just looking at the schedule closely, parsing it a little bit, I look at that game, man, oh man, it gets monumental. If you win that game, you essentially can put it to bed. Not that it fixes the season in any way whatsoever, but thank God it takes you away from that conversation. If Syracuse loses to NC State in the Dome next Saturday, hold on to everything because it could be coming down to the nitty-gritty finish. I think legitimately you got to win one more game to stop having this conversation. That game could have been yesterday. They were up 16. It was not. And yet, here we are. We watch and we wait and hope that does not become a thing. Because, man, oh, man, could you imagine the pressure of that rando game against Virginia, of which has been played for significantly higher stakes in previous years? You know, the Final Four could be played for, whoa, Syracuse just tried to scrape into the ACC tournament. We'll see. That NC State game a week from tonight in the Dome will guide us in that direction of how important those other three games are going to be in regards to that. Because as Griff said, yeah, regardless, you don't want to be one of those three teams not taking part in that. Not fun. All right, we'll hit a break. Some football news. When we come back, your calls as well. 315-437-7644. Back next, Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio.
Water.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they lose that game, Super Cat, all of a sudden you're staring down the barrel. Is there no Waffle House in Greensboro? There's got to be a Waffle House in Greensboro, doesn't there? Have I been to a Waffle House in Greensboro? There's a Biscuitville. Mike's back. Yeah, what is... Oh, can you turn the lights aren't on? What have I been doing? Oh, well, this whole show has been tragically lit. Those lights can stay. No? So I shouldn't write Mike here? I should write David?
I wouldn't have told you, but normally you're like, we'll get Mike in here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make you a liar.
I'm a truth teller. Yeah. Don't.
I think I'm only up 2.
I think you're up 2. That's what we both seem to remember.
Yeah.
I had a dynamic win yesterday.
He did. It was kind of a confidence crusher.
I have shattered my
Honestly, it was.
Until the end of this game today. Get ready to guard my hole.
You like the goalie when he hits both posts? Get a measurement? Alrighty. Oh. Ready? Ow. We just hit fingers. Ow, we did it again. I'm playing a little more aggressive today, Brian.
Both gonna need to go to
Should we make that line the distinction can't go across? Woo! Oh no, that was perfect.
That would have been an all-time.
Didn't have enough juice. Oh my God! I double. Oh gosh! That was karma. I double posted off that.
What did that even bounce off to go do that? I think that bounced off like the back of your goal and came back.
Stars are realigned. That'd be the second time.
Oh man. Yeah, there's got to be a Waffle House in Greensboro.
I double posted that. I thought you were gonna smack it right after too.
Oh man.
That was a good battle. One of my favorites. I try to play a little bit more aggressive, but I think to save my fingers, I won't be doing that as much.
I will take your fingers out. Smothered and covered. Did you send us a Bing map, Ryan? It's a bold choice. A Dave Bing map. I see what you did there, Tronic. Never quite caught on, did it? Spatch and the wheeze. Bing. You get a little Tim in your lives next Wednesday as well, I believe. Tim's on the old schedule.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, back at it here on this Wednesday. Phone lines available if you'd like. 315-437-7644. We've had some expansive basketball takes today. Always appreciated. And a nice visit with Griff, as we always have here on a Wednesday. Little football thoughts. This news broke just before the start of the show today. Speaking of, as we have with basketball, a lot of GMs. We know about basketball GM Alex Klein and how important he will be or is right now to current evaluation and trying to get the whole operation prep for portal season and all of that. Well, football has a GM as well, or had a GM as well, in Nate McNeil, who had come to Syracuse from Illinois, where he is returning to work with their GM as the I need a deep breath to get this whole title out. Nate is going to be the executive director of player evaluations and acquisitions. What? The executive director of player evaluations and acquisitions. That is an actual college football title these days. Evaluate, is he working for a hedge fund or for a football team? It is wild what's going on. And Mike McAllister reporting shortly thereafter that Tommy Corporale, who's been part of the football recruiting staff under Fran since he arrived here, is likely the guy that's going to slide over into the GM role. And I'd say you look at just like the nimbleness potentially of a basketball staff versus like the battleship that is a football staff. And this is the way it is at most schools here. You know, the roster is a tenth of the size. I guess the staff should mirror that. Besides Nate McNeil, there were 8 other full-time football staffers whose primary job is scouting and recruiting. 8 others, of which Tommy was one of them. So he'll slide into the big chair, and I'm sure they'll, backfill beyond that in recruiting. So that's the football news on the recruiting front. Nate McNeil moving on, sliding in is Tommy Corporale. He's been heavily involved in their Florida area of stuff, from my understanding, and we'll see how it all goes. But, man, you click on that football staff, and you're like, my scroller. It's just we're scrolling, and there's a lot of people. God forbid you click on, like, Alabama's football staff if you want to see a lot of people. But it is shocking how staffed football teams are compared to 5-10 years ago. I mean, SEC, Alabama specifically, really led the proliferation of that here in the last decade. But, oh, my goodness, there are a ton of people that work on these staffs. Now, in other recruiting news, Syracuse, I believe this came out yesterday, but we didn't talk about it yesterday. They've made the top 5 for a 2026 4-star quarterback and a former Rutgers verbal by the name of Gavin Sidwar. Gavin Sidwar. In next year's class, he's currently the 19th rated quarterback by On3. The final 5 he released the other day were Syracuse, Missouri, Ole Miss, UCLA, and Iowa. If you can find a common thread between Syracuse, Missouri, Ole Miss, UCLA, and Iowa, you are better than I. I can't look at that group and be like, I know what this guy's looking for. I got no clue. Syracuse, Missouri, Ole Miss, UCLA, and Iowa, and also consider he'd previously verbal to Rutgers. But Fran Brown, hot on the heels of yet another big-time recruit. This guy would be a quarterback in next year's recruiting class, Gavin Sidwar. So something to keep an eye on there. The recruiting game never stops. Spring ball is going to be coming before you know it here in football within the next month. We'll be getting into that spring game within a couple of months. And, man, we had our guy Jordan Renan on, who covers the Giants, yesterday from ESPN. But Combine, a few weeks out in Indianapolis. Kyle McCord and crew will be there. Syracuse Pro Day will be before too long. We're going to have a lot of Syracuse football stuff to keep our spring occupied this year. Thank goodness, because unfortunately the Syracuse basketball season is certainly closer to the end than not at this point, where, you know, we talk about, will they make the ACC tournament? Will they not? When that's the conversation, you know the conversation is stopping with the ACC tournament. If the conversation is, will you get into the ACC tournament, that means whenever the ACC tournament ends, you know, period, end of story. That's it. Even last year, we were waiting for, like, all right, will they make the NIT or whatever, or decline the NIT or whatever. Like, there was a very slight postscript to it last year. This year, like, you know, that when that's done, it's period, end of story, saddle up, portal opens in 2.5 weeks or whatever it will be from that point, and then giddy up and see where it takes us. But there we are, a little football for you here on a Wednesday. And obviously they also have a position to fill. Wide receiver coach Ross Douglas left for Oregon earlier in the week. He and Fran, as we mentioned yesterday, exchanged pleasantries on the social medias, and we'll see how that gets backfilled as well by Fran Brown going forward. Some minimal staff movement this offseason, replacing the special teams coordinator, and now Ross Douglas. Besides that, it has been steady as she goes for the Syracuse football coaching staff here in the offseason. With that, we'll step aside for a few. We'll get our guy David in here for a 411. That's coming up next here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. You just don't go into the MAC and take that thing down, Tronic. There's plenty of big boys still in the Big East, Zach. Last check, they've won a lot of national titles recently in the Big East. Well, you'll just have to continue biding your time, Ryan. There you go, Ryan. Tim, in with other options. Life comes at you quick. Yeah, Gavendo. I can only assume that's correct. I think Selena is just spatching the wheeze. It's snowing here. I haven't looked out the window. It's snowing. There, San Diego Cuse. There. David's here. What's up?
Not much.
Yes, breaking news. It is snowing in Syracuse. We're fast closing on 100 inches for the winter, so today. That's fun.
Alan, Kentucky said he was shoveling himself, actually.
Alan, Kentucky was shoveling?
I could not believe it.
Huh. We at least have plows, so that's good.
They get 1 inch down there.
Yeah,
shutting everything down.
State's done for a week. State is just done.
Yep.
Oh, man, I think people, speaking of Greensboro. And,
these new headphones?
They are, no. But they are less used. I don't know where the blue ones are.
Not taped, at least.
Yeah. Do they work? Now you're asking another question.
Sound.
All right, so there we go. 29 degrees in Arkansas, Govendo. What do the chickens think of that?
B as in boy, A-N-A-C-K. Try to pronounce that. Bannock. I'm used to being called Bannock. I was called Bannock in high school, so I'm used to it. Throughout all my years.
Why? Because we like to talk about Greensboro, Cuse Vegas. I don't know. Because there's a chance that somewhere Jim Boeheim is insulting Greensboro. Even though where's Jim currently? He's currently in South Bend for the Notre Dame game tonight. That's David Govendo. Govendo asked who's the new turd.
I answered the phone for him.
Well, that's true.
2 days ago.
Like,
and
David
earlier.
has been in here before.
When he called Cody's show earlier, that was me. He's like, who's this? He goes, it's Jordan's mom. I was like, oh. Interesting.
The Big Ten commissioners in favor of 12 teams? Huh.
I was going to bring that up.
Interesting. I would have guessed more.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
That it is. Here we are on this Wednesday. Snowing again outside. Shocking news, I know. Drive safe out there. It will stop snowing at some point. I give you no guarantees of when, but probably. This hour here brought to you by DVOffers.com. It's powered by Drivers Village in Cicero. They might have a nice car with like the 4-wheel drive, and maybe they'll toss in a ice scraper for you or something as we roll along here on this Wednesday.
Here's the 411.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
In the 315.
So you're going to be doing that all week, right?
Nah.
All right, we got our guy David in here today. David, what is going on?
All right, so today, the SEC and the Big Ten commissioners agreed that the college football playoff seeding needs change.
Okay.
So they're in favor of straight seeding, where there's no difference between the rankings and where they seed the teams. So basically, the top 4 teams that get byes, conference championships, we're throwing that out the window. The 4 best teams, period, are the teams that get the byes.
I can get behind that because
I'm in favor of it.
The bracket personally got a little wonky this year, and then you saw Boise State and Arizona State getting byes, and it was like that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, Arizona State had a good chance to win that game, but
yeah, just the idea of them, they played a great game. It's just the idea of them getting a bye. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And obviously, the SEC and the Big Ten think that will then result in their teams getting more of the byes, which it probably will
for sure.
But yeah, I'd say give the top 4 teams the byes. That I can get with that.
Yeah, I think it'll make it a lot more exciting.
The rest of their ideas, which you may have there, I don't know how much I'm behind, but
yeah, like expanding or cutting it down to 10. I've seen both sides.
Yeah,
they want to expand it to 14, but like at the same time, those teams that sneak in, you saw them get blown out this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, every year's different, so we can't just like use that as an example going forward, but
I
something
just
to think about.
What I don't like is, all right, expand, don't expand. I mean, expansion always feels kind of inevitable with these things. Yeah. I don't like the idea of the conferences getting like, hey, SEC, you get 4 auto bids. It's like, what? You're going to get that many in anyway. Yeah. Can we at least pretend you have to earn it a little bit?
Fair. At least try to be.
Like, because it's going to be very rare, but there will be a season that you don't deserve it. Can we at least have in the 1 year out of 10 you don't deserve it, a bracket that then observes that and gives people a chance.
Yep.
Most years you're going to get it anyway, so it just doesn't matter. It seems a waste of time to lock that.
I
in.
agree.
And insulting to everybody else. It's more that, like, you're going to get it anyway. Don't rub it in everybody else's face.
Right.
Yeah.
So the NBA is back in action tonight.
Okay.
You got one game, Lakers and Hornets. A couple storylines. Well,
can they finish their trade?
Yeah, so Luka Doncic is not expected to be on a minutes restriction tonight, according to Coach J.J. Redick. And obviously, like you just said, the trade. We got Mark Williams and Dalton Knecht wearing the same jerseys as they were before the deadline.
Yes, and Mark Williams, who failed the physical, healthy enough to play in the game.
He was interviewed. He said he was very surprised by it. He said he felt healthy. The game before he got traded, he played a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
So he's still surprised by it.
Yeah, I'm guessing that if you're having buyer's remorse in a trade like that, which who knows what the Lakers were thinking at that point. If you want to figure out a way to fail a guy physical, you can probably. That's a little. Your knee looks a little funky. You got.
Yep.
Is that a cartilage? Ooh, looks a little flappy. I don't know.
Yeah, tough break for LA because I love that trade for him.
It was intriguing. It was after that because we all remember. I mean, you're a Duke guy, so you remember Mark Williams, but we remember Mark Williams at Duke. He's like that guy. That guy blocked a lot of shots.
Really fast.
Like, he blocks a lot of shots. Yep. But in the NBA, you've heard work ethic questions and all of that. But at the same time, if you have those questions and you get tossed in a locker room with LeBron James, like, if you don't resolve it then, you're never going to.
Yep. I mean, you look at Luka Doncic last year. He had Derek Lively. He was a great lob threat, great shot blocker. Same with Daniel Gafford. The trade deadline, they made some changes, and they just took off from there. You thought this year would be the same kind of thing. You bring in Luka Doncic, insane playmaker. You pair him with a lob threat who can block shots.
Yeah.
You got a title contender right there.
It made sense. Like, I understood what they were doing.
I was all for it, even though I'm not a Lakers fan, but it would have been exciting to watch.
Yeah.
They would have been right there.
I don't know if there's going to be any buyout guys they can get that are any semblance of that. Probably not.
Not that I can think of.
Not 7'2", bouncy, rangy guys, but I don't know. The Lakers thing will be interesting. I still can't believe that trade happened. I still cannot believe Dallas traded away Luka. It made zero sense at the time to me, and it still makes zero sense. And then go figure.
Moves. You remember where you are when it happened, and you'll never forget.
Yeah,
it's just one of those.
It was like, they did what? With who?
And it was then like 10:30 on a Saturday too.
It was like midnight because it came on right after the Syracuse-Cal game that night. It was like,
yep.
Because I know I'm like turning off the
directly
TV.
After, starting to fall asleep, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. Like, I literally scrolled on the bottom line of SportsCenter. They came on after the Cuse game, and I'm like, huh? Turn off the TV, like go upstairs, brush teeth. It takes like 10 minutes. I'm like, wait a minute. Did I Twitter? Wait, what? That was real? Huh? And then go figure, Anthony Davis, the prize for the Mavericks is already hurt. Like, he got hurt literally in the second half of his first game.
Yep.
It's just like, okay. Just stunning. Like the Lakers, for the amount of times they have been gift-wrapped star players over the years, like totally gift-wrapped. Like, this one makes almost, like, Shaq at least went there as a free agent. Right. Like, Kobe, okay, there was a trade. He was an 18-year-old high school. You didn't know he was going to be that. Like, you might have thought you didn't know. He was the 13th pick of the draft. That already tells you didn't know. Like the Chris Paul trade, they got vetoed the one time because it was unfair. This one feels like 28 times as insane.
It does.
It's like, what are we doing? Like, have one of the faces of the league. All right, Lakers are solved for the next decade. Let's move on to. So, like, it feels like tampering, and the Mavericks are like, nope, it was our idea. It's like, what? No, this feels so insane. It is crazy to me.
So we got MLB season coming up soon.
Yep.
You can see my shirt here.
Oh, you're a Rays guy.
Fan.
I did not know you were a Rays guy.
Stadium issues are still going on.
Yes,
it's not been resolved yet.
They're playing at the Yankees
Steinbrenner Field,
spring training
Tampa.
field,
Yep.
Which is right next to
like a minor league sized park.
Yeah, it's a very nice. It's right next to the Bucks NFL stadium.
It's actually in Tampa, not out in St. Petersburg.
I didn't realize we were down there once for like a women's basketball thing, staying in Tampa, but the games were like out in St. Pete. So like on the bus,
it's a different area.
Yeah,
you gotta go across the bridge.
Yeah, it's like a 30, 45-minute bus ride or whatever. And you always hear stories about how in the middle of it's not in the middle of nowhere, but how disconnected it is. And you're like, wait, that thing, it's in like a strip mall next to the highway, and it looks terrible. It's just, and now they're going to have to spend money to put the roof back in. It's just
our new proposed stadium is going to be $1.3 billion. We have till March 31st. Owners got to make a decision.
And that's still
Are we going to pay our part? Because it's already getting funded. Now we got to pay our part.
Yeah, and that's going to be in St. Pete too, right? Like
no, Tampa.
Oh, is that going to move that to Tampa?
Actually, it's actually across from Tropicana Field. So it is still in St. Petersburg.
Okay.
The historic gas plant district.
You just wish because
it's going to be indoors. It's going to be similar, but it's going to be a lot nicer, upgraded. They're going to build a community around it to try to attract more visitors.
Just couldn't
tourists.
you find a place in Tampa?
Yeah.
Like, where the Tampa Bay Lightning Arena down there is in a perfect spot. It's a great area down.
We're going to see this year, though, playing in Tampa. I mean, it's a small stadium, small field, I should say.
Yeah.
So it's going to be packed stands. But, you know,
really,
are the fans in Tampa? We're going to find out.
All right, we'll see. All right, David, we have a call. Let's get a call in here before the end of the segment. We got our guy Stefan in Utica. Stefan, hello.
Well, hello, Brian. How are you?
I am wonderful, Stefan. Always good to hear from you.
Now, did someone forget to tell Syracuse basketball last night that there were two halves, not just one? The second half, they played terrible, and they lost the lead, and they just fell apart the second half.
Yeah, I feel they should have worked that in the game plan, Stefan, to be aware the second half was happening. Because, man, that was we were all watching, right? First 10 minutes were great. The second half was that was kind of miserable. That was not a lot of fun last night.
And it used to be with this program for years and years, get 20 or more wins, get into the dance. That used to be the standard, and we've gotten away from that these days.
Yeah, I mean, last year, slight asterisk, was the only 20-win regular season going back in about a decade. And, yeah, it used to be you just assumed 20. And, scheduling and larger conferences, and there's a lot of reasons. But, yeah, we need to get back to that, Stefan. Like, if you're not starting your record with a 2, your chance of getting to the NCAA tournament are not that high. So we need to see that going forward.
Yes, we do, and thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Stefan. Always good to hear from our guy, Stefan, in Utica there. All right. Anything else, David, before we wrap up?
That's all we got.
There we go. Yeah, the Tampa thing, like I was down there a ton for when the women would play. They were in the Big East with USF, so we were down there every other year. But like that area, and then obviously with football, like the Yankees complex is really nice, and it's right next to the Buccaneers Stadium. So I think for a year, like cool place, but yeah, I don't know what it seats, but nowhere near them.
It's
nowhere near a major league size,
something like that.
That said,
we do have the lowest attendance in baseball every year.
It's kind of more than what they draw anyway, so I guess it could work. Go figure. 2 teams this year that are playing in basically minor league ballparks with the A's as well in Sacramento. All right, with that, we'll hit our final break here. Come back, tell you what's on tap tonight. That's next year. Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Hey, this is former Syracuse basketball player Atan Thomas.
Last season, the Syracuse Center became the first Orangeman to be named the Big East Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm thinking like a 1-2-4
player Eric Devendorf.
Yeah, we like to greet Stefan.
Join us every Monday at 11:30 as we break down the Syracuse basketball season.
It's our new show, A Ton of Devo, on ESPN Radio Syracuse.
And don't forget to watch us on QSportsTalk.com.
That's live on Twitch and YouTube.
No, I did not work for USF.
It's time to wrap those engines.
I did many
Syracuse
games there.
Nationals are now proud to produce the Cavalcade of Cars, a 2-day indoor car show at the New York State Fairgrounds, March 22nd and 23rd. Check out more than 150 vehicles, including the classics you love, plus lifted trucks, Jeeps, motorcycles, and more.
Paulie. I blame Paulie. No, I did not work for USF. I did many games there with Syracuse, but maybe they put visiting announcers in their notes. I don't know. It is and yes, Spatch and Louise. It is Stefan in Utica. But between that and football, I've had many Tampa trips over the years. St. Pete is like, to call them the Tampa Bay Rays, like, I guess Tampa Bay, they're on the other side of the water, but St. Pete is not the same place as Tampa. Paulie is back, Zach. Paulie arrived back, or at least pulled into the office 3-ish. Maybe the SMU game, Zach? I don't know. Paulie's doing post-game for that one. Paulie was tired. Paulie goes sleepy. They do Formula One in St. Pete? I did not realize that. Interesting. Javendo is leaving his fruit out now to begin the rotting process. Yeah, that's why we played the commercials that break, because Paulie's back, so we needed to do it. I didn't even Paulie at once when I was literally filling in for Paulie running the board during Orange Nation yesterday.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com. All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, roll along here on this Wednesday as we get toward the end of our time together today.
Here's what's on tap tonight.
What do we got tonight? It is yet another Wednesday night ACC Network Syracuse-ish kind of doubleheader. In that, it is yet another Jim Boeheim, Eric Devendorf Wednesday night doubleheader. If you're into that kind of thing, 7 o'clock on ACC Network tonight. SMU at Notre Dame. Our guy Wes Durham, Corey Alexander, and Jim Boeheim on the call there. 2 of the 3 of them friends of the show. Corey Alexander, not a friend of the show. Never. We haven't been able to get him on the show. But, Wes and Jim. I wonder, we'll get the Wes and Jim food report. I wonder if they went to Parisi's in South Bend last night. Jim Boeheim knows how to seek out a good Italian meal. We'll have to get that report tonight. 9 o'clock ACC Network. Devo down in Florida, Miami, at Florida State. Devo will be on the color for that game tonight at 9 o'clock. And what's he got? He's got a game this Saturday, too, as well. I think he'll be at the Boston College game this Saturday. On tap for the old program tomorrow. Anticipate being joined by one J.J. Starling tomorrow, brought to you by our friends at RomanoCars.com. Our weekly Thursday guest. And Luke Roa from the men's lacrosse team will be by as well. Tough loss for Laxalt last Saturday against Maryland. They get ready for a visit from Harvard in the Dome this upcoming Saturday. Harvard's ranked. That'll be a game where Syracuse is clearly favored, but that's a real ball game coming up on Saturday. Harvard's a decent club coming in this Saturday. So Luke Roa, J.J. Starling on the program tomorrow. We'll see what other trouble we can concoct. We'll get Mario in here on Friday, get some more lax at the end of the week. Obviously, we'll always be talking hoops around here, but no basketball game this weekend for the only time of conference play this season. So a little slight step back from the hoops maybe the next couple of days. But if things are available to talk about, we'll talk about it for sure. Adrian Autry will be on Orange Nation tomorrow, his weekly scheduled visit, and his Q&A on Q Sports Talk tomorrow night. With that, have a good night, everybody. Back at it tomorrow right here, Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio.
The